Hello everyone and welcome to music class. Today we will be talking about time values of rests and notes. By the end of this lesson, pupils should be able to identify the various note symbols, the rest symbols, and also their time values. So let's take a quick look at notes. In simple language, a note is any musical sound that you can hear. Take notes of the words musical sound. It is not just any sound, like the creaking of a door or the barking of a dog. The sound has to be musical. Again, a note is any musical sound that we can hear, that we can orally perceive. These musical sounds can be represented using symbols such as we have on the screen here. I'm sure you have come across some of these symbols at some point in time. We will take a closer look at them soon. And now on to rests. A rest is a short interval of silence in music. Just like notes, rests can also be represented with symbols such as we have on the screen here. We will soon take a closer look at rests as well. Now let's quickly take a look at what notation means. But just before we do that, quickly I want to do a quick recap so that we remember that notes are any musical sound that we can hear, and they can be represented using symbols. Rests is a short period of silence in music, and just like notes they can be represented using symbols. Now going on to notation. Remember that we already established that we can represent notes and rests using symbols. Well, that's exactly what notation is. Notation is when we represent music with symbols. When we then begin to read the notation so that we can perform it back as music, then that is known as sight reading. Sight reading is like the reverse process of notation. So if you take a quick look at this image here, you see when we take music and we begin to represent that with symbols, that process is notation. When we take those symbols and we begin to read them and interpret them so that we can perform them back as music, and that process is known as sight reading. Again, quick recap. Notation is when we represent music with written symbols. Sight reading is the process of reading notation so that we can perform it as music. Now it gets more interesting. Let's take a quick look at time values. Time value is also known as note value. So when you hear both of them, time value or note value, they are talking about the same exact thing. Time value is simply the length of the note. That is how long or how short the note is. Time value is what tells the musician how much value to ascribe to each note. Notes and rests all have different time values. Some of them are long and some are quite short. Now for us to be able to decipher time value, for us to be able to decode time value, we have to look at three parts of the written notation. The first part is the note head, and we're checking to see if that note head is open or if it's shaded. The next part is the stem. We're checking to see if there is a stem or there is no stem. And the third part that we must look at is the tail. We're checking for the presence or absence of a tail. Sometimes the tail is referred to as a flag, and in some other situations it's known as a beam. Again, another quick recap. We said that so far we have established that notes are musical sounds that we can hear, that we can orally perceive, and they can be represented using symbols. We said rests are short intervals of silence in music, and rests also can be represented using symbols. We said notation is when we represent musical notes and rests with symbols. We said time value is also known as note value. We said time value is what tells us how long or how short a note is. And for us to be able to decode the length of a note, we need to consider the head of that note, the stem, and the tail. Now let's take a closer look at time value for notes. I'm sure we have seen some of these symbols before. The first one here is the semibrief. It's just a simple note head. It is not shaded. It does not have a stem. It does not have a tail. Every time you see this symbol, it tells you that the note value is 4 beats or 4 pulses. What that means is that you are going to play a long note that should last for 4 beats. The next symbol I have here is the minim, and this is the symbol of a minim. It has a note head and a stem attached to it. Now the time value of the minim is 2 beats or 2 pulses. The third symbol is the crotchet. It has a note head that is shaded and a stem. Its time value is 1 beat or 1 pulse. The fourth symbol is the quaver. It has a shaded note head, a stem, and a tail attached to it. And its time value is half a beat or half a pulse. The fifth symbol we are going to look at is the semiquaver. Again, this has a shaded note head, it has a stem, and it has 2 tails, okay? And its time value is 1/4 of a pulse. There are more notes, more possibilities, but for the scope of this class, we'll just stop here. And now let's take a look at the time value of rests. So for rests, we see that the semi-brief rest also has a time value of 4 beats. And this is what it looks like. It looks like a heart that is turned upside down. Okay, what this means is that for the period of 4 beats, you don't sing, you don't play nothing, you don't do anything, you're just silent, you're taking a break, or you're resting. Okay, so for 4 beats, you are going to rest. No singing, no playing. This next symbol is the minim rest, okay? And this is the symbol here. It looks like a heart that is the right side up, and its time value is 2 beats or 2 pulses. The third symbol is the crotchet rest, and it looks exactly like this with a time value of 1 beat. The fourth symbol is the quaver rest, and it looks like this with 1 tail extending out of it, and it has a time value of half a beat or half a pulse. And lastly, we have the semi-quaver rest, looking like this and having 2 tails extending out of it, and again its time value is 1/4 of a pulse. So in conclusion, if we take a look at this map, we see that with notation we can represent notes and rests. And for notes we have semi-brief, minim, crotchet, quaver, and semi-quaver. For rest we have similar things going on: semi-brief rest, minim rest, crotchet rest, quaver rest, and semi-quaver rest. Here we can see all the symbols and their respective time values. Thank you. See you in the next class.